I ain't afraid of no ghost, but I'm a little bit afraid of another Ghostbusters sequel. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it'll give you a pretty good overview of what we normally do at the Horror Movie Syllabus, which is we look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from the subgenre to explore. But this is our Doctorate Level series. This is where we go back and revisit a subgenre we've already explored, kind of do a recap of the video we did before, and then give a new 4th Doctorate Level selection for that subgenre. Something that's a little bit maybe off the beaten path, a little deeper cut, a little less known, or a little bit more interesting, or just a little more niche, so that we can kind of, I don't know, get a little bit deeper into these subgenres. And that's what I want to do today with the ghost subgenre. Now, ghost subgenre is one that we talked about, and if you saw the previous video, you know I really like ghost movies. I think they're great, so much so that I had to distinguish between ghost movies and haunted house movies, even though there's strong overlap between the two of those, because I wanted to talk about more movies. And so we made the distinction. Haunted house movies kind of bound to one specific place, ghost movies not tied to one location. And then, of course, there's demon movies. There's some overlap between demon movies and ghost movies as well. And, we got into all of that in the video. It was a little complicated, but it made sense because you kind of know when you see it. You know a ghost when you see a ghost. And so we really dug into some good ones in the previous video. And we're going to recap the ones we talked about right now. The first ghost movie that we talked about in our previous video was The Fog. And The Fog is a horror bona fide classic. It comes from horror legend John Carpenter, and it is just so rich with mood and atmosphere, and that is its calling card. That is the number one reason why it is so well known, so beloved, and so important in horror, is just how atmospheric and creepy it is. It's a classic ghost story. It even starts with like a telling of a ghost story around a fire. It's just so classic ghost story that we had to talk about it on the Ghost video. It's extremely well made. It's got a wonderful cast with Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Atkins, and Adrienne Barbeau, and others. There's just so many good things about this movie. It's not one of my favorite movies, but I have to acknowledge the pedigree. I have to acknowledge just how well made it is, how much it stands out in the horror community, and how much the remake sucked, because we talked about that a bit too. That remake is one of the worst remakes I've ever seen. But the original, it's the pinnacle of craftsmanship, and if you haven't seen it before, you should definitely check it out, because it is one that you have to see for your horror education. The next ghost movie that we talked about was Insidious. And Insidious is one of those movies that blurred the lines between ghosts and demons, because it has both in there. But it really had enough ghost stuff to talk about that we had to talk about it. And we really wanted to talk about it because from the ghost perspective, it really had a cool blend of this old school classic ghost story kind of vibe with like a modern filmmaking, storytelling attitude, and blended those two things together really nicely. We're in the hands of James Wan here, so we know we're in good hands, and it really is a well-made, fun movie with a strong cast. You've got Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne and Lynn Shay. It really is a fun ride of a movie, and it has like that old school feel while still feeling extremely modern, so modern audiences could eat it up, and they did. And it franchised out in a way that, for the most part, I think we're on par. Like there's weaker elements and stronger elements to each of them, but overall, I like the franchise quite a bit. But the first one is definitely exceptionally good, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend it for sure. And the last ghost movie that we talked about was, of course, The Sixth Sense. And The Sixth Sense is one of the best ghost movies you'll ever see, and one of my all-time favorites for sure. And the movie is just notorious for being good, and in particular for how good of an ending it has. And of course, we're not spoiling anything here for anybody, but it is a fantastically made movie, made by the wonderful M. Night Shyamalan. And I'm a Shyamalan apologist, but this movie is so good that even people who hate Shyamalan admit that this is a really good movie. So this is how good it is that even the Shyamalan haters have to admit that it's good. And it's got a killer cast with Haley Joel Osment and Toni Collette and Bruce Willis doing some of his best work ever. And the drama in the movie is just as good, if not better, than the horror in it. this movie works on such a wonderful dramatic level, both because the actors are really bringing it and because Shyamalan actually wrote a really tight story, which I know he doesn't always get that, but this one he really did. And they sell the drama of this just as much as they do the horror. It's a well-made movie from start to finish, nuts to bolts. Everything about it's great, really flawless, and I love it, and frankly, you should too. So those are the movies that we talked about on a previous video. Now it's time to get to our new 4th doctorate level selection. Our doctorate level selection is Ghost Story. Ghost Story came out in 1981 and is directed by director John Irvin, who's mostly known for a lot of TV and documentary and some movies. He's done a lot of work, but I'm not really familiar with pretty much any of it, to be honest with you. And he's made here a really classic, old school ghost story. And just like the title says, it's an old school ghost story, and I'm here for that. I'm here for it, and hopefully you are too. But we're going to get into that in just a second. First, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a group of old, wealthy businessmen who like to get together and tell spooky stories to kind of freak each other out. Only there's some weird stuff going on in their town, and they're starting to get haunted by this young woman from the past, perhaps. And one of their sons really gets involved in these shenanigans or these ghostly things that are going on. And when he comes to them for more explanation and stuff, they are very reluctant to tell him because there's a mystery afoot and they are trying to hide something, and he's got to get to the bottom of it before it gets to the bottom of him. I don't even know what that means, but it sounded good. And we're going to stop there so as to not spoil the movie for anybody. But the movie is less really hinging on that mystery and the solution to it because it's frankly kind of obvious. It's more about the mood, the atmosphere. You've heard me talk about it. I talked about it a lot when we were talking about The Fog. It really is what I kind of want in a ghost movie. And this is given to me in the classic sense of it. It really has that old school ghostly feeling, even though it's a modern day setting and it's got a lot of modern locales. It's not like just a haunted mansion looking thing. It really does feel more modern than that. It does evoke that classic feel, that classic mood of a ghost story, and I love it. I love the way this movie feels, and I love the cast because that's what makes this movie noteworthy. And it's the biggest reason why we're talking about it today is the exceptional Oscar pedigree cast that this movie has, because it's insane. It's got Fred Astaire, it's got Doug Fairbanks Jr., it's got Melvin Douglas, it's got so many classic legendary actors with so many Oscar nominations between them that it's insane. Legends are working in this movie. Legends. And some of them doing their last work. I think it was Fred Astaire's last movie. And maybe Doug Fairbanks also. It's they're not young men anymore, but they're still bringing it. They still have that thing that made them stars. It's still there, and it's still working in this movie. And then you've got Craig Wasson from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, and Alice Krige from, the thing I remember from her the most from is being the Borg Queen from Star Trek Next Generation. They are the young people in the movie, and they are doing really good work here. They are holding their own against these powerhouse legends and doing good work here. In particular, Alice Krige, who steals the show, in my opinion. She is my favorite part of this entire movie. She's so good in this movie. She does a lot of nuanced stuff with the role, and I'm trying to dance around things because I don't want to spoil things too much. But suffice to say, she does play this in a really interesting and nuanced and layered way that I appreciated quite a bit. Now, like I said, the movie is kind of based on this idea of a mystery, and it's slow going. It's a slow burn movie. So if that's a problem for you, this movie is going to be a bit of a slog because it takes a while to get to where it wants to go. And like I said, the mystery, a little bit obvious. I was able to figure it out pretty easily, and I think you would too. Maybe not the details, but the overarching mystery, not a big surprise. And if it's trying to make you think that way, I think it's failing on that end. But I don't think it's trying to do that. I think it's just trying to give you a good spooky ghost story, and I think it succeeds on that level. Now, let me be clear. It's not really very scary. It's a little spooky. It's not a totally scary movie. It's not going to scare anybody, frankly. But it is kind of creepy and spooky, and it's interesting, and I liked everything that going on. Now, they could have gone really dark with this. The movie's subject matter is a little bit dark. It could have gotten really dark, and I thought that's where it was going to go. And I was going to be like very surprised with like the idea of Fred Astaire doing something that dark or whatever, but it doesn't quite go all the way. It doesn't go that dark, but it does get kind of dark. You know, it has some ideas with the ghost looking kind of creepy and some of the creature effects that they did, which were done by Dick Smith apparently, and great work because they look awesome. It really did capture that kind of creep factor. I love it. Now, this is apparently based on a book by Peter Straub, which I've never read, called Ghost Story. And from what I understand, the book has some more complex themes in it, themes of misogyny, which I think they only scratch at here in this movie. I think they fail a little bit to really delve into the misogyny that is underlying a lot of what's going on in this story. And that's a shame because they could have done more with this. They could have gone a little bit farther. Like I said, they could have gone a little darker, and they could have really made a statement or said something about the way men look at, treat women, think of women, how women are serving men, because that's a theme that goes throughout the movie. They could have done more with that in a way that would have been really fascinating, really powerful. But this is 1981, so that wasn't the market then. And, you know, honestly, this is the kind of movie that would be ripe for a remake at this point. I think that a remake would suit this movie very well. Not necessarily because of technology being able to do some cool stuff, although that's one thing. I think with the more progressive nature of the world right now, people would be interested in seeing a retelling of this movie that really leaned into some of those themes of like men and women and the patriarchal structure of things, especially when it comes to wealthy men. I think that could work really, really well, and I'm definitely down to see it. Unfortunately, you'd have to find somebody as good as Alice Krige in this movie. I don't know how you do that because she crushes it in this movie as far as I'm concerned. But that was the big thing for me. The acting is just phenomenal in this movie. It's unworldly how good the cast in this movie is. And I'm pretty enthusiastic about this movie. I think it's a really good movie, but I am in the minority on this. I have to confess. Yeah, I picked it the Doctorate selection, but it's not a super beloved movie. It's the critics didn't love it when it came out, and it doesn't seem like it's gained a huge following since then. Kind of why I wanted to talk about it, frankly, because it's a little underloved, frankly. Even despite it being Fred Astaire and Doug Fairbanks Jr. and Melvin Douglas, it's just not as well known as I think it should be, and it's not as respected as it should be. Again, I don't want to oversell it. It's not an amazing movie. It's just a really nice, like, classic ghost story with some legends in it and some really solid acting across the board. And frankly, that's enough to make a good time for me, at least. Like, so I love the movie. I think it's worth talking about. And I definitely think it's worth your time seeing. So if you haven't seen it, check it out and let me know what you think. Like I said, slow burn, so may not be for everybody, may not be your cup of tea, and that's fine if it is. Let me know. But if you like a good classic ghost story, if you have a respect for Hollywood legends and love to see old actors doing some really great work, this is the jam for you, for sure. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Come back. We'll talk about it. We'll have a good old time. So that's our Doctor selection for the ghost subgenre. But of course, I've got an extra credit selection because I love me some of these movies. And here's the one we're going to talk about today. Our extra credit selection is The Awakening. And The Awakening came out in 2011. It was directed by Nick Murphy. And when I look him up, he's done very little stuff, but this seems to be his first film. And it's kind of shocking because he did a really, really nice job on this one. It has all the marks of a more accomplished or seasoned director because it's very confident in its storytelling, and it's just done with a command for the visuals and for the pacing and for the acting and everything. Just a really, really nice debut from Nick Murphy on this one. Now, if you haven't seen it before, the movie is the story of this woman who is kind of a ghost hunter, but also kind of like a ghost debunker. She goes and investigates sightings of ghosts and then kind of shows how they're not real, how they're being scams or how they're being misinterpreted or things like that. And she gets brought into this boarding school, this all-boys boarding school, where they're seeing what they believe to be the ghost of a young boy who had died there recently, and all the kids are freaked out, and they've brought her in, mostly to calm the kids down and to kind of figure out what's going on, get to the end of the root of things. And there is a mystery underlying all of that, of course, as there always is in these movies, and hijinks abound. And we're going to stop there, so not to spoil it, but this one is a movie that I like very much that seems like it gets almost no love. And the main reason why I like it is because of Rebecca Hall, who plays the main character, the ghost hunter slash debunker. She is absolutely fantastic in this movie. And here's the thing: we've seen Rebecca Hall before. We've talked about her in The Gift. We talked about the movie The Gift, and I thought she was a scene stealer there. And she's really great here. And she's got this really great character to work with. I love Rebecca Hall in this movie, and I love her character in this movie. She's great. She's like the anti-Warrens, if you will. She goes in and tries to debunk ghost stuff, and she's trying to find out what she needs to find out in order to kind of battle her own personal demons. So that kind of is what fuels her crusade in searching for and also debunking ghosts. Really cool character. I could watch a whole series with her. I wish they could have franchised this movie, frankly, and having her get into different ghostly adventures every feature. I would be down for it because I think they set up a really solid character, and it's kind of a bummer that this movie didn't go anywhere and give us some sequels because I would be down for that. But Rebecca Hall is surrounded by some other quality actors, namely Imelda Staunton, who we probably all know from Harry Potter, but who has done some incredible stuff in her career. And then Dominic West, who I love from The Wire, and he's always a solid actor. He's fine here, but he's weaker than the other two, to be honest. Like, he's kind of not bringing it up as the other two, but I think that's more a byproduct of the role rather than the actor, because I've seen him be very good. I think it's more that his role is a little bit diminished compared to the others, but I'll stop there because I don't want to spoil any of that. But what we've got here is another super atmospheric classic ghost story. You can tell that's what I'm in the mood for. That's the vibe I'm feeling. That's why I'm picking the movies that I picked, because they've got a really cool setting with this old boarding school for these kids. And just like Ghost Story, the scares are mild. This is scarier than Ghost Story probably, but still very mild scares. It's not super duper scary. It's all about mood. Like, if you can get into a good classic ghost story mood, this movie will work for you. If you like creepy dark houses and, you know, glimpsed apparitions and stuff like that, this movie will scratch that itch for you. Like I said, Nick Murphy directing confidently, just really giving the vibe, you know, the mood in this movie. He's taken his time. And again, we've got a mystery that is not maybe the most compelling mystery. The resolution of it is admittedly a little bit convoluted. It's an okay mystery. It kept me engaged. I wasn't bored, and I didn't solve it. It's just the resolution might be a little bit unsatisfying. It was a little unsatisfying to me too, but that wasn't what I cared about. What I cared about was the character. Rebecca Hall's character is just cool, and I was there for the ride. And it's a decent ride. It's a solid ghost story. It's a solid, like I said, could be scarier, but I didn't miss it being scary because I was tied up with the feel of it, the mood of it, this cool character who I found captivating and really interesting, and I wanted to know more about her, and more about her was also tying into the mystery. I guess slight spoiler there, but it's pretty obvious, and so it really winds up being a cool mystery or a compelling enough mystery because it's telling me more about her as it's unraveling, and that was interesting enough to me because I wanted more of the character. So this movie is on my list here largely because I think they set up a really cool character. But the story around her, the plot line around her is solid. It's good. So really A+ character, solid B minus story, and that's enough for me again to recommend it to you guys and let you know about it, because this movie didn't make much noise at all. It's very underrated in my opinion. Nobody seems to talk about it. It didn't get a lot of buzz when it came out, and it seems like a few people here and there will mention it. I'll see it every once in a while pop up, but I don't hear a lot of love for it. So I wanted to bring this one up and put a spotlight on it for sure. I almost made this one the Doctorate Level section. I really tossed and turned over that one, but honestly, Fred Astaire was gonna win out. Come on, but Rebecca Hall is great, and this movie is underrated. I really like it. So if you haven't seen this one, I would implore you to check this one out and let me know what you think, because I do think it needs more eyeballs. I do think it deserves a little bit more love than it gets, and it is worth seeing for Rebecca Hall's character alone, but stick around for everything else. Even the kid actors, everybody's good in this. It's well made, very well made actually, and well acted. Everything in this is working for me, so I don't know why it doesn't get more love, but it doesn't. Give it more love, and then let me know how much you loved it. So that's going to do it for our revisiting of the ghost subgenre. Like I said, I love these movies, and these two that I picked are movies that I personally really like. Kind of out on a limb here because they're not widespread liked. There's not a lot of universal appeal for them. So if you do check them out, let me know what you think, because like I said, I'm going out on a limb a little bit there. I know it's not for everybody, so it's okay if you don't like them. Let me know. Let me hear about it in the comments. But right now, I got to let you hear about a Horror Trivia Pursuit card, because it's that time where I'm going to read that question live on camera and then answer it and hopefully not embarrass myself. So, because we're talking about ghost movies, we're going to talk about the paranormal category. And the question today is, in 2012's Sinister, the pagan god Bagul is also referred to by what other name? I have no clue. Now we're back to the age-old thing that I'm always talking about, how Victor doesn't do well with names, generally speaking, in these movies. I don't retain them very well. I did remember Bagul because it's just dumb enough to remember, frankly. And I think we actually might have had a question about Bagul earlier when we did these questions. I honestly, to be honest with you, but the other name, I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember them calling him another name. I really don't remember him being called something else at all. So I got nothing here. I'm going to be taking a total shot in the dark here. And here's the thing: I've seen Sinister multiple times. We've talked about it here on the channel. Good movie, man. It's got Ethan Hawke in it. You know, it's Scott Derrickson. And we just talked about Black Phone recently on the channel, which is excellent. And we mentioned that he had done Sinister, and it's a great movie. I actually really enjoy it quite a bit. The sequel is diminishing returns, but that first one, really, really solid work, man. And the Bagul design is really cool too. I like the way he looks, and the concept of him is pretty neat. It's a little bit squishy. It's a little bit of a messy concept, but overall I like it quite a bit. So this is one to check out if you haven't seen it, for sure. And I'm guessing most of you have seen it, but the question is, do you remember Bagul having another name? Because I sure as hell don't remember that. So I'm kind of going to go on a limb here. So go ahead and start locking in your answer, because I'm going to kind of spin my wheels a little bit. I'm just kind of, guessing here. But my thought process is Bagul is like his real demon name. So, because there's kids in the movie that are dealing with Bagul, I feel like he got named something kiddish, like Boogeyman, but he's not called the Boogeyman, but something like that, something simple that a kid would come up with. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to go with, and I don't know why, Mr. Happy. That's what I'm going with, is Mr. Happy, because I feel like this is kind of like the dumb thing that kids would say or come up with to describe, a demon that they were seeing. I'm going to call him Mr. Happy. That's what I got for you. So ride with me if you want to, but maybe you want to pick your own answer up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and check the card now and see how wrong I am. And the answer is Mr. Boogie. Damn it, that was close. Maybe it's just rattling around the back of my brain. There was Mr. Something, and it kind of sounded like Mr. Boogie, Mr. Happy. I don't know. Man, I almost want to pat myself in the back a little bit for that, because for a blind shot in the dark where I didn't remember it at all, I had no recollection of it whatsoever, or at least conscious recollection of it, I'm feeling pretty good that I came as close as I did, but still wrong. Don't get credit for it because it's still wrong. But anyways, did you guys get Mr. Boogie? Did anybody get that one right? I'm guessing some of you probably did. But if you didn't, what did you guess? Did you guess something like I did? Was it something silly? Were you close like I was? Did you say Mr. Something? I'd like to hear it. Leave me in the comments below. Let me know. And of course, let me know if you got other ghost stories that you think should have been mentioned here on the list, because I ghost movies that I haven't seen before, I might check them out and talk about them in another video, because I'm down for these kind of movies. I like them very much. So if you've got good suggestions, keep them coming, guys. Thanks very much for sticking around to the end of the video. I appreciate you guys as always. Until next week, I'm just going to say, class dismissed.